Right now, while you're watching this, algorithms designed using ancient Egyptian mathematical principles are tracking your eye movements, predicting your next click, and influencing your thoughts. Google's primary color sequence directly mirrors Thoth's sacred tetrad from the Emerald Tablets. Apple's bitten apple, that's Thoth's symbol for accessing forbidden knowledge. Meta's infinity logo represents his eternal wisdom loops. This isn't coincidence. Thoth, the Egyptian architect of reality through language and symbols, provided the mathematical framework that modern information systems use to shape human consciousness. His Emerald Tablets contain 13 principles of reality manipulation that tech giants and secret societies have been implementing for decades. But here's what they didn't expect. Thoth's energy is activating certain individuals right now. You're seeing repeated numbers, experiencing impossible synchronicities, feeling drawn to hidden knowledge. These aren't random events, they're signs that you're being selected for something bigger. Most people will dismiss these signals and remain trapped in the matrix. But if you're experiencing these activations, you need to understand what's happening before this window closes. Now that you understand Thoth's role as the architect of reality's hidden mechanics, it's time to examine the precise operating system he embedded into existence itself. These aren't philosophical concepts gathering dust in ancient libraries, they're the actual code running your daily experience, whether you realize it or not. The first and most fundamental principle is mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This isn't mystical poetry, it's a statement about the nature of reality that modern science keeps rediscovering. When Olympic athletes spend hours visualizing their perfect performance, they're not engaging in wishful thinking. Brain scans show that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as physical practice. The mind literally cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Consider the placebo effect, which mainstream medicine acknowledges but struggles to explain. People given sugar pills experience genuine physiological changes. Tumors shrink, pain disappears, depression lifts, simply because they believe they're receiving treatment. The mind reshapes physical reality. But here's where it gets interesting. The nocebo effect demonstrates the shadow side of this principle. Tell someone a harmless substance will make them sick, and they'll develop real symptoms. Their belief literally programs their body's response. This connects directly to why your thoughts about money, relationships, or success tend to manifest as your external reality. Your mental patterns aren't just reflecting your circumstances, they're actively creating them. When someone consistently thinks, "I never have enough money," their subconscious mind begins filtering opportunities through that lens, causing them to miss possibilities that don't match their internal programming. The second principle, correspondence, reveals how patterns repeat across all levels of existence. As above, so below, as below, so above. Your relationship with money mirrors your relationship with self-worth, because the same energetic patterns govern both. Someone who hoards possessions often hoards emotions too. The person whose home is chaotic typically has a chaotic mental state. These aren't coincidences, they're expressions of identical underlying patterns manifesting at different scales. Look at your living space right now. Notice what's broken, what's cluttered, what's neglected. These external conditions correspond to internal states you might not even be conscious of. The ancient Hermetic masters understood that by changing patterns at one level, you automatically influence all corresponding levels. Vibration, the third principle, explains why walking into certain rooms instantly shifts your mood, or why specific music can transport you to different emotional states. Everything exists in constant motion, vibrating at particular frequencies. When you feel drawn to certain colors, foods, or environments, you're responding to vibrational resonance. Your emotional state is literally a frequency, and like attracts like. This is why surrounding yourself with higher vibrational influences, uplifting music, natural environments, positive people, isn't just feel-good advice. You're actually tuning your personal frequency to match what you want to experience. Conversely, constant exposure to fear-based media, toxic relationships, or degraded environments pulls your vibration into lower frequency ranges, attracting experiences that match those states. The practical applications of these principles go far deeper than what we can share on public platforms. The most powerful reality-shifting techniques require discretion and proper context, which is why we reserve them for our private Insights Academy newsletter community. Plus, for a limited time, New members receive a complimentary digital copy of the Kybalion, the foundational text that reveals these secrets in their original form. The fourth principle, polarity, reveals that apparent opposites are actually different degrees of the same thing. Hot and cold are both temperature. Love and hate are both intense emotional engagement. Success and failure are both learning experiences. Understanding polarity gives you the power to transmute any experience by recognizing its opposite pole exists within the same spectrum. When you're experiencing fear, instead of fighting it, you can consciously move along the pole toward courage. They're not separate emotions. Courage is fear transmuted. Poverty and wealth exist on the same spectrum of abundance consciousness. Depression and joy are different vibrations of the same emotional capacity. Rhythm, the fifth principle, explains why life moves in cycles. Everything flows in and out, rises and falls, advances and retreats. Recognizing these natural rhythms prevents you from being blindsided by inevitable changes. When you're experiencing a challenging period, understanding rhythm assures you that this too shall pass, but more importantly, it teaches you to prepare for and work with these cycles, rather than being victimized by them. The stock market, seasonal changes, your energy levels, relationship dynamics, all follow rhythmic patterns. Masters of this principle learn to ride these waves instead of being crashed by them. Cause and effect, the sixth principle, reveals that nothing happens by chance. Every effect has a cause, and every cause produces an effect. Most people experience themselves as effects, victims of circumstances beyond their control. But when you understand true causation, you realize that your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are constantly setting causes in motion. The key insight is that most causes operate on mental and emotional levels long before they manifest physically. Your current circumstances are effects of causes you set in motion through previous thoughts, beliefs, and actions. This isn't about blame, it's about power. If you're creating your reality through causation, you can consciously choose different causes to produce different effects. The seventh principle, gender, recognizes that masculine and feminine principles exist in everything. Masculine energy is active, focused, penetrating. Feminine energy is receptive, creative, nurturing. Both are necessary for creation. In your personal development, this means balancing doing with being, action with receptivity, planning with intuition. Many people operate predominantly from one pole, creating imbalance in their results. Pure masculine energy without feminine receptivity leads to burnout and forced outcomes. Pure feminine energy without masculine direction leads to unfocused creativity and unrealized potential. These seven principles aren't separate laws, they're different aspects of how consciousness creates reality. When you start recognizing their operation in your daily experience, you shift from being an unconscious participant to a conscious co-creator. The ancient mystery schools guarded this knowledge because it represents genuine power, the ability to consciously participate in reality creation rather than being a passive victim of circumstances. This is exactly why such knowledge has been kept from general circulation. A population that understands these principles cannot be easily controlled or manipulated. They become conscious creators of their own experience rather than unconscious consumers of someone else's agenda. Now that we've explored the hermetic principles that govern your experience, let's examine something even more profound, the mathematical language that Thoth embedded into the very fabric of reality itself. This isn't mystical speculation. It's measurable, verifiable truth, hiding in plain sight. Look at your hand right now. The ratio between your palm and your fingers, your forearm to your upper arm, even the spiral of your fingerprints, they're all expressing the same mathematical constant, 1/618. We call this the golden ratio, or phi, and it appears everywhere with such consistency that dismissing it as coincidence becomes mathematically impossible. Walk outside and count the petals on a daisy. Notice the spiral patterns in a pine cone or sunflower seeds. Examine the chambers of a nautilus shell under magnification. Each one follows the exact same mathematical progression that ancient Egyptian architects encoded into their temples thousands of years ago. The Great Pyramid's dimensions contain not just pi and the golden ratio, but when you calculate the relationship between its height and base perimeter, you get the speed of light, 299 792,458 meters per second, accurate to several decimal places. This mathematical consciousness doesn't stop at natural forms. Financial markets, despite appearing chaotic, follow Fibonacci retracements with uncanny precision. Traders who understand these patterns consistently outperform those relying on conventional analysis because they're reading the underlying mathematical structure that governs collective human behavior. But here's where it gets fascinating and disturbing. Gothic cathedrals were deliberately constructed using these sacred proportions to create specific psychological and spiritual states. The ratio of nave height to width, the spacing between columns, even the frequency resonances created by their dimensions, all calculated to elevate human consciousness. Medieval architects understood that mathematical harmony in physical space produces harmony in mental and emotional states. Now contrast this with modern corporate architecture. Office buildings, shopping malls, even many schools deliberately avoid these harmonious ratios. The proportions feel subtly wrong, creating psychological discomfort that manifests as restlessness, anxiety, and decreased cognitive function. This isn't accidental. Environments that feel slightly off make people more susceptible to external direction and less likely to engage in deep, independent thinking. The suppression goes deeper than architecture. In 1939, the international standard for musical tuning was changed from 432 Hz to 440 Hz. This might seem trivial, but 432 Hz resonates with natural planetary frequencies, human heartbeat patterns, and brainwave states associated with calm focus and creativity. When you tune instruments to 432 Hz, listeners report feeling more relaxed, centered, and emotionally balanced. The 440 Hz standard, by contrast, creates subtle tension and agitation. It's 8 Hz higher than the natural resonance, just enough to keep listeners in a state of low-level stress without them consciously recognizing why. Musicians who've experimented with returning to 432 Hz often describe their music as feeling more alive, and audiences as being more emotionally engaged. This mathematical manipulation extends into every aspect of modern life. The flower of life pattern, that ancient symbol found carved into temples worldwide, isn't decorative art. When you overlay it with atomic structures, you discover it contains the geometric templates for every known molecular formation. Carbon atoms, water molecules, even DNA's double helix follows the precise angular relationships mapped out in this 6,000-year-old design. The 5 Platonic solids, those perfect three-dimensional forms that Plato associated with the classical elements, appear everywhere in nature. Salt crystals form perfect cubes, earth element. Virus structures follow icosahedral geometry, water element. And certain minerals naturally grow into perfect octahedrons, air element. Even soccer balls use this sacred geometry, combining pentagons and hexagons in the exact pattern of a truncated icosahedron. What's remarkable is how this mathematical intelligence expresses itself through the Fibonacci sequence in living systems. Start with 0 and 1, then add each number to the previous one. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89. This sequence governs everything from the branching patterns of trees to the spiral arms of galaxies. Pine cones have spirals that follow Fibonacci numbers. Count them yourself. Flower petals almost always appear in Fibonacci quantities. Lilies have 3, buttercups have 5, delphiniums have 8. But here's what makes this profound rather than merely interesting. This mathematical consciousness seems to be actively organizing reality toward greater complexity and beauty. The golden ratio doesn't just appear randomly. It represents the most efficient packing, the most stable structures, the most aesthetically pleasing proportions. It's as if the universe has an inherent drive toward mathematical elegance. Understanding these principles gives you a practical tool for improving your immediate environment. When arranging furniture, use golden ratio proportions. Rooms feel more harmonious when the relationship between different elements follows these natural ratios. Plants grow more vibrantly when positioned according to Fibonacci spirals. Even scheduling your day according to these mathematical rhythms, working in 89-minute focused blocks followed by 55-minute integration periods, aligns your cognitive patterns with these universal harmonics. The suppression of mathematical literacy in modern education isn't coincidental. When people understand the mathematical principles underlying reality, they become much harder to manipulate through artificial environments and frequencies. They recognize when spaces are designed to create compliance rather than flourishing. They notice when information is presented in ways that bypass rational analysis. Start paying attention to the mathematical patterns in your daily experience. Notice which environments make you feel energized versus drained. Observe the geometric relationships in natural settings that bring you peace. Count the petals on flowers you encounter. These aren't random observations. They're training your consciousness to recognize the mathematical language that Thoth embedded into the structure of reality itself. This mathematical awareness becomes the foundation for recognizing when you're in harmony with natural law versus when you're being subjected to artificial manipulation. It's the difference between living in alignment with the universe's inherent intelligence and being trapped in systems designed to extract your energy and attention. The mathematics don't lie. The patterns are measurable, verifiable, and consistent across every scale of existence. Once you start seeing them, you can't unsee them, and that's exactly the kind of awakening that threatens systems built on keeping you disconnected from the mathematical consciousness that surrounds and supports you. Look, I need to tell you something that's going to fundamentally change how you see every screen you touch, every app you open, and every digital interaction you have. What if I told you that the very technology you're using right now, the internet itself, was designed to mirror the ancient role of Thoth as the divine messenger, creating a global neural network that connects human consciousness in ways the ancient mystery schools could only dream of? Think about it. Thoth was known as the scribe of the gods, the keeper of divine knowledge, the one who facilitated communication between realms. The internet functions identically. It's become the planetary nervous system, carrying thoughts, emotions, and information instantaneously across the globe. But here's where it gets fascinating. This isn't accidental. The principles governing how information flows through our digital networks directly reflect the hermetic laws we explored earlier. When you scroll through social media, you're not just consuming random content. Those algorithms use psychological principles that trace back thousands of years to the techniques developed in ancient mystery schools. TikTok's endless scroll isn't entertainment. It's a modern application of hypnotic induction methods once used in Egyptian temples. The rapid succession of images, the unpredictable reward schedule, the way your thumb moves in that repetitive downward motion, these mirror the rhythmic, trance-inducing practices that ancient initiates used to access altered states of consciousness. Instagram operates on an even deeper level. Thoth was the master of hieroglyphs, understanding that images carry power beyond words. Instagram has weaponized this ancient knowledge, creating a platform where visual symbols bypass your rational mind and speak directly to your subconscious. Every carefully curated feed is essentially a modern spell, using color, psychology, composition, and symbolic imagery to influence your desires, self-perception, and behavior patterns. And Twitter, the character limit isn't a technical constraint. It's a deliberate design choice that forces communication into aphoristic forms, exactly like the wisdom teachings carved into temple walls. Ancient masters knew that profound truths are most powerful when condensed into memorable, repeatable phrases. Twitter has turned this into a mass manipulation tool, where complex ideas get reduced to emotionally charged soundbites that spread like viral incantations. But let's dig deeper into the companies themselves. Google's logo uses the exact color sequence of the chakra system: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo. This isn't coincidence. Google positions itself as the gateway to all human knowledge, and they're using color frequencies that subconsciously align with your energy centers every time you see their brand. They understand that visual symbols create psychological resonance. Apple's bitten apple is perhaps the most blatant example. It's the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge, representing the promise of wisdom that comes with a price. Steve Jobs wasn't just building computers. He was selling the archetypal human desire to transcend limitations through forbidden knowledge. Every iPhone purchase is a modern reenactment of humanity's original choice to bite into divine wisdom. Amazon's logo shows an arrow pointing from A to Z, but look closer, it forms a smile. They're claiming dominion over all knowledge and commerce while presenting a friendly face. The message is clear: we control everything from A to Z, and you'll be happy about it. Jeff Bezos named his company after the mythical tribe of warrior women who needed no men, a symbol of complete self-sufficiency and dominance. Streaming platforms like Netflix use psychological profiling techniques that would make ancient oracle priests envious. They don't just recommend content, they create personalized reality bubbles, serving you information that gradually shapes your worldview. The autoplay function removes your conscious choice, letting their algorithms guide your mental programming, while you passively receive whatever they decide you should see. Video games represent perhaps the most sophisticated application of ancient initiation principles. Players advance through levels, unlock new abilities, and receive rewards for completing predetermined challenges. This is identical to the mystery school progression system. The difference is that ancient initiations were designed to expand consciousness and develop wisdom, while modern games often trap players in repetitive loops that harvest their time and attention for profit. News media uses what occultists call revelation of the method. They openly display their manipulation tactics because conscious consent, even subconscious, is required for certain forms of influence to work effectively. When CNN admits they're pushing propaganda, or when Facebook acknowledges they're conducting psychological experiments on users, they're not confessing, they're following an ancient rule that requires them to reveal their methods to maintain karmic balance. Here's something remarkable happening though. Cryptocurrency and blockchain technology represent a return to ancient principles of decentralized wisdom and peer-to-peer value exchange. These technologies could potentially break the monopoly on information and financial control that's been consolidated over centuries. Bitcoin operates on mathematical principles that echo the sacred geometry we discussed. It's a technological manifestation of universal laws that can't be corrupted by human institutions. Artificial intelligence development mirrors the ancient goal of creating artificial gods or tulkus, thought forms given independent existence. The tech industry is literally trying to birth digital deities, and they're using the same techniques described in Tibetan texts about creating autonomous thought beings. The question is whether these AI entities will serve humanity's highest good or become tools for further control. Start paying attention to how these influences show up in your daily digital interactions. Notice when you feel compelled to keep scrolling. Observe which colors and images grab your attention. Question why certain content appears in your feed. Recognize when you're being guided towards specific emotional states or purchasing decisions. Understanding these connections isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about maintaining mental sovereignty in an increasingly connected world. When you recognize the ancient wisdom principles embedded in modern technology, you can use these tools consciously rather than being used by them. You can harness the genuine benefits of global connectivity while protecting your mind from manipulation. The same hermetic principles and sacred mathematics that govern reality are now encoded in the digital systems that shape human consciousness. The question is, will you remain unconscious of these influences, or will you learn to navigate them with the wisdom of someone who understands the deeper game being played? When Jung first wrote about synchronicity in the 1950 seconds, he was touching the edge of something far more profound than even he realized. He saw meaningful coincidences as evidence of an underlying connectedness in the universe. But what he couldn't have known is that these synchronicities aren't just random manifestations of cosmic unity. They're direct communications from higher intelligence, specifically orchestrated by Thoth to guide awakening consciousness through the labyrinth of modern existence. You've probably experienced this yourself. You think about an old friend and they call within hours. You need specific information and a stranger mentions exactly what you need to know. You see 11 on clocks repeatedly during a period of major life transition. These aren't coincidences. They're breadcrumbs in a sophisticated communication system that operates through the quantum field itself. The mechanism behind synchronicities becomes clearer when you understand consciousness as a creative force that literally shapes probability. Every time you focus your attention or set an intention, you're creating what quantum physicists call probability waves in the field of potential outcomes. These waves don't collapse into specific experiences randomly. They respond to the quality and direction of your consciousness. Thoth, as the cosmic intelligence governing divine timing and order, can influence which probabilities manifest by subtly adjusting the quantum field around your awareness. Think about the mathematical principles we discussed earlier, the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, the sacred geometry underlying reality's structure. These same organizing principles govern how synchronicities unfold. They follow patterns, rhythms, and precise timing that reveal an intelligence far beyond random chance. I've documented thousands of synchronicity cases over the years, and certain patterns emerge consistently. Numerical synchronicities are among the most common: 1111, 333, 444 appearing repeatedly when someone is approaching a major awakening or life transition. But it's not just seeing these numbers once or twice. True synchronicity involves seeing them persistently, often multiple times per day, in contexts that feel meaningful and impossible to ignore. Sarah, a software engineer from Portland, contacted me after experiencing what she called the 444 phenomenon. For 3 months, she encountered 444 on clocks, receipts totaling $4, 44, license plates, even the number of unread emails in her inbox. Initially skeptical, she started documenting these occurrences. The pattern intensified until she was seeing 444 combinations 8 to 10 times daily. During this period, she felt an increasing urge to leave her corporate job and pursue sustainable technology development. The day she finally submitted her resignation, the 444 appearances stopped completely. 6 months later, she launched a solar energy startup that's now revolutionizing rural electrification in developing countries. Symbol synchronicities operate differently, but follow similar patterns. Ancient symbols, the Eye of Horus, the Ankh, the caduceus, spirals, or geometric forms, begin appearing in unexpected contexts. Not in obvious places like jewelry stores or museums, but in cloud formations, architectural details you've never noticed, random graffiti, or digital glitches that create recognizable shapes. Marcus, an accountant from Chicago, started noticing spiral patterns everywhere during a period of spiritual questioning. Spirals in coffee foam, in parking garage architecture, in the way his daughter arranged her toys, even in data visualization patterns at work. These appearances guided him towards studying sacred geometry, which led to discovering his gift for energy healing. He now runs a successful practice combining financial consulting with chakra balancing, an unlikely combination that perfectly serves his unique client base. The most sophisticated synchronicities involve what I call information cascades, when exactly the right knowledge, person, or opportunity appears precisely when you need it most. These orchestrated encounters often feel almost absurdly perfect in their timing and relevance. Jennifer, a documentary filmmaker, was struggling to fund a project about indigenous water rights. On the same day she received her 3rd rejection letter, she missed her usual train and had to take a later one. Sitting across from her was a woman reading a report about groundwater contamination. They struck up a conversation, and it turned out this woman headed a foundation specifically focused on supporting environmental justice documentaries. Not only did Jennifer receive full funding, but the foundation connected her with indigenous communities who became central to her award-winning film. Technology synchronicities are particularly fascinating because they demonstrate how Thoth's influence extends through the digital communication networks we explored in the previous section. Phones calling specific people accidentally, emails arriving at precisely the right moment, or software glitches that reveal meaningful information. These aren't random technical failures. They're purposeful interventions in digital systems to deliver guidance. The key to distinguishing meaningful synchronicity from random coincidence lies in several factors. First, emotional resonance. True synchronicities create a feeling of recognition, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Second, timing precision. They occur during periods of questioning, transition, or when you need guidance most. Third, pattern persistence. Meaningful synchronicities rarely happen just once. They repeat until you acknowledge and act on their message. Developing synchronicity literacy requires shifting from linear thinking to pattern recognition. Start maintaining a synchronicity journal, documenting not just the events but your emotional state, life circumstances, and any decisions you're contemplating when they occur. Over time, you'll recognize your personal synchronicity language, the specific ways Thoth communicates with your consciousness. Before sleep, try asking specific questions about challenges you're facing. Then, pay attention to what appears in your reality over the following days. Practice peripheral vision meditation, softening your focus to notice patterns and connections you might miss when concentrating too narrowly on immediate tasks. Skeptics often dismiss synchronicities as confirmation bias or pattern-seeking behavior, and there's partial truth to these explanations. Our brains are indeed wired to find patterns, and we do tend to notice information that confirms our existing beliefs. However, these psychological tendencies don't account for the precise timing, the practical outcomes, or the way synchronicities often provide information we weren't previously seeking or even aware we needed. The most compelling synchronicities are those that lead to outcomes we couldn't have planned or predicted, like Sarah's career transformation or Jennifer's funding breakthrough. These results suggest an intelligence operating beyond our conscious awareness, orchestrating events across multiple probability streams to create optimal outcomes. Synchronicity clusters, multiple related meaningful coincidences occurring within short timeframes, often precede major life changes or opportunities. When you notice these intensifying patterns, pay attention. Thoth is likely preparing you for a significant shift or opportunity that requires your conscious participation to fully manifest. The ethics of synchronicity interpretation matter enormously. The goal isn't becoming superstitious or abdicating personal responsibility, but developing a collaborative relationship with higher intelligence. Use synchronicities as guidance while maintaining critical thinking and practical action. They illuminate possibilities and optimal timing, but you still must choose and act. As reality accelerates and traditional planning methods become inadequate for navigating increasing complexity, synchronicity literacy becomes essential. When linear thinking fails to account for rapidly changing variables, pattern recognition and intuitive timing become crucial skills for optimal decision-making. This week, start documenting the meaningful coincidences in your life. Notice what patterns emerge, what symbols repeat, what perfect timing reveals itself. You're not looking for magic, you're learning to read the sophisticated communication system that's been operating around you all along, waiting for your conscious recognition and response. Carl Jung discovered something profound when he identified the collective unconscious, a shared psychic space where humanity's deepest patterns and archetypes reside. But what Jung couldn't have anticipated was how this natural phenomenon would be weaponized into a programmable control matrix. The same interconnected field that once helped our ancestors coordinate survival strategies has become a broadcast system for mass manipulation. Think about how quickly entire populations adopt identical behaviors, thoughts, and emotional responses. When a new social media platform emerges, millions of people suddenly develop the same gestures, speech patterns, and values seemingly overnight. This isn't organic cultural evolution, it's evidence of a hijacked collective field being used to download specific programming directly into individual consciousness. The mechanisms are more sophisticated than most people realize. Mirror neurons in your brain automatically fire when you observe others' actions, creating an involuntary copying mechanism. Social media algorithms exploit this by showing you carefully curated behaviors to mirror. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between direct experience and observed experience. It absorbs and replicates whatever it witnesses most frequently. Consider how fashion trends manufacture artificial scarcity and status competition. One season, everyone needs skinny jeans. The next, it's oversized blazers. These aren't natural aesthetic preferences emerging organically. They're manufactured desires implanted through coordinated media campaigns that trigger your mirror neurons and social conformity programming. The collective unconscious becomes a delivery system for manufactured wants, masquerading as authentic personal preferences. Political polarization operates through the same mechanism. Instead of encouraging citizens to think critically about complex systemic issues, the programming matrix channels all discourse into predetermined left versus right frameworks. People absorb their political identities from their chosen media ecosystem, then defend these downloaded beliefs as if they originated from personal reflection and experience. The real issues, corporate control of government, monetary system manipulation, environmental destruction, remain safely outside the boundaries of acceptable political discourse. Consumer culture represents perhaps the most insidious programming of all. From childhood, you're conditioned to seek fulfillment through material acquisition rather than spiritual development. The collective field broadcasts a constant message that happiness comes from external possessions, achievements, and social status. This programming creates perpetual dissatisfaction. You must always be striving for the next purchase, promotion, or validation to feel complete. your stress response system gets hijacked in this process. Fear-based messaging activates cortisol and adrenaline, putting your nervous system into survival mode where critical thinking shuts down and compliance behaviors increase. News media, advertising, and social platforms deliberately trigger these stress hormones to make you more susceptible to suggestion and less capable of independent analysis. Breaking free requires understanding that most thoughts passing through your consciousness aren't actually yours. They're broadcasts from the collective programming matrix that you've learned to identify with as your thoughts and feelings. The first step in mental sovereignty involves developing the ability to observe your thoughts without automatically believing or acting on them. Daily meditation practice becomes essential, not the commercialized mindfulness apps designed to make you a more efficient consumer, but genuine consciousness training that strengthens your ability to maintain awareness independent of external programming. Sit quietly each morning and watch thoughts arise without engaging them. Notice which thoughts feel authentic to your deeper nature versus which ones sound like repetitions of media messages, family conditioning, or social expectations. Develop what I call source discrimination, the ability to trace where your thoughts and impulses originate. When you feel compelled to buy something, adopt a political position, or judge someone, pause and investigate. Is this arising from your authentic wisdom? Or does it match programming you've absorbed from external sources? Authentic insights usually arrive with a sense of clarity and peace, while programmed thoughts often carry urgency, fear, or compulsive energy. Practice mental hygiene as rigorously as physical hygiene. Just as you shower to remove accumulated dirt and bacteria, you need daily practices to clear accumulated psychic debris from media consumption, social interactions, and environmental influences. This might involve conscious breathing exercises that reset your nervous system, visualization techniques that clear your energy field, or simply spending time in nature away from all electronic devices. Psychic shielding becomes crucial as you develop sensitivity to the programming matrix. Visualize yourself surrounded by a protective energy field that allows authentic connections while filtering out manipulation attempts. Before engaging with media, social situations, or any potentially programming-heavy environment, consciously activate this protection and set the intention to maintain your mental sovereignty. The social challenges of deprogramming are real and significant. Friends and family may resist your awakening process because it threatens their own unconscious participation in collective illusions. When you stop automatically agreeing with consensus reality, others may feel judged or abandoned. The label conspiracy theorist gets weaponized to discourage critical thinking and maintain social pressure for conformity. Navigating these relationships requires compassion and strategic wisdom. You don't need to convince others of your insights, but you also don't need to pretend you still believe things you've seen through. Find ways to remain connected to people you care about while refusing to participate in conversations or activities that compromise your mental clarity. Some individuals find that consciousness-expanding practices like meditation retreats, breathwork, or carefully approached plant medicine experiences help break through particularly stubborn layers of conditioning. These modalities can provide direct experiences of consciousness beyond the programmed personality, making it easier to distinguish authentic awareness from downloaded beliefs. The responsibility that comes with mental freedom is substantial. You must learn to navigate between multiple reality tunnels, understanding how programmed individuals perceive the world while maintaining your own clarity. This requires developing practical effectiveness within existing systems while not being controlled by them. Create daily practices that maintain your mental sovereignty while keeping you connected to community in healthy ways. Start each morning by setting conscious intentions rather than immediately checking your phone. Throughout the day, regularly pause to assess whether your thoughts and emotions are arising from authentic inner guidance or external programming. End each day by clearing any accumulated psychic debris and reinforcing your commitment to mental freedom. The goal isn't to become isolated or paranoid, but to become genuinely free to think, feel, and choose based on your authentic nature rather than unconscious programming. When Thoth activates your reality shift, he's calling you to reclaim the sovereignty of your own consciousness, and that reclamation begins with recognizing how thoroughly your mental landscape has been colonized by forces that don't serve your highest good. When you begin responding to Thoth's call and breaking free from the collective programming matrix we just explored, your entire system, physical, mental, and energetic, starts undergoing profound changes. These aren't mystical fantasies or wishful thinking. We're talking about measurable, documented transformations that neuroscience is finally catching up to understand. Let me start with what's happening in your brain, because this is where the magic becomes science. When you engage in regular meditation, contemplation, or any consciousness-expanding practice, you're literally rewiring your neural networks. Neuroscientist Dr. Richard Davidson's groundbreaking research at the University of Wisconsin showed that meditation increases gamma wave activity, the same brainwaves associated with moments of insight and heightened awareness. But here's what gets really interesting. Brain scans reveal that awakening individuals develop increased connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, essentially creating new highways for information processing. The pineal gland deserves special attention here. Ancient traditions called it the seat of the soul, and modern research is revealing why. This tiny, pine cone-shaped structure deep in your brain produces DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the same compound found in ayahuasca and other consciousness-expanding plants. When your pineal gland begins activating through specific practices like darkness, meditation, or certain breathing techniques, people report remarkably similar experiences: vivid, prophetic dreams, spontaneous visions, and what can only be described as downloads of information. Sarah, a software engineer from Portland, described her experience to me. It started with my dreams becoming incredibly vivid and meaningful. Then I began having these moments during the day where I'd suddenly know things, like my friend was about to call, or which route to take to avoid traffic. My rational mind kept trying to dismiss it as coincidence, but the accuracy was undeniable. The physical symptoms often catch people off guard because they're so unexpected. Your sleep patterns will likely shift dramatically. Many awakening individuals find themselves naturally waking between 3 and 5 a.m., what traditional Chinese medicine calls the spiritual hours, when the veil between dimensions is thinnest. Don't fight this. Use these quiet hours for meditation, journaling, or creative work. Your relationship with food transforms too. Heavy, processed foods start feeling literally heavy in your body. You'll find yourself craving lighter fare, more fruits, vegetables, spring water. This isn't about becoming a health fanatic. Your body is simply becoming more sensitive to energy, and dense foods carry dense energy. Trust these instincts. Electromagnetic sensitivity becomes pronounced for many people. You might notice that being around cell phone towers, Wi-Fi routers, or even certain electronic devices creates discomfort or agitation. This heightened sensitivity extends to all forms of energy. Crowds might feel overwhelming, certain locations might feel charged with particular emotions, and you'll start sensing the energetic residue in spaces. The emotional purging phase can be the most challenging aspect of awakening. As your consciousness expands, suppressed traumas and unprocessed emotions surface for healing. This isn't punishment, it's liberation. Your psyche is finally strong enough to process what it couldn't handle before. Relationships often become strained during this period because you're no longer willing to participate in unconscious patterns or superficial connections. Marcus, a former corporate executive, shared his experience. I went through what I can only describe as an emotional hurricane. Childhood wounds I thought I'd dealt with came flooding back, but this time I could see the patterns they'd created in my adult relationships. It was painful but ultimately liberating. Some friendships ended, but the relationships that survived became deeper and more authentic. Energy moving through your body becomes a tangible experience. You might feel tingling sensations, waves of heat or coolness, or what feels like electricity running through your nervous system. This is often spontaneous Kundalini activation, the awakening of dormant spiritual energy that's been coiled at the base of your spine. In traditional yogic systems, this process typically takes decades of preparation, but during mass awakening periods like we're experiencing now, it can happen spontaneously. Managing these symptoms requires practical strategies. When energy becomes overwhelming, grounding becomes essential. Walk barefoot on natural earth, hold stones or crystals, or simply lie flat on the ground and consciously connect with the Earth's magnetic field. Cold showers can help integrate high-frequency energies, while warm baths with Epsom salts can soothe an overstimulated nervous system. Diet plays a crucial role in supporting your transformation. Increase your water intake significantly. Your cells need extra hydration to process these energetic changes. Reduce or eliminate alcohol, caffeine, and recreational drugs, as your system becomes increasingly sensitive to all substances. Many people find that intermittent fasting supports the purification process by giving their digestive system breaks to focus energy on cellular regeneration. It's important to distinguish between awakening symptoms and conditions requiring medical attention. While spiritual awakening can create intense experiences, persistent anxiety, depression, or physical symptoms should be evaluated by healthcare professionals. True spiritual awakening enhances your overall well-being. It doesn't create chronic suffering. The social isolation phase challenges almost everyone. As your consciousness expands, conversations about sports scores, celebrity gossip, or consumer purchases start feeling hollow. You might feel like you're speaking a different language than people around you. This temporary isolation serves a purpose. It forces you to develop inner strength and authentic self-connection rather than depending on external validation. Finding your tribe becomes crucial during this phase. Seek out meditation groups, consciousness communities, or online forums where people discuss these experiences openly. The validation of connecting with others on similar journeys can be profoundly healing. Advanced symptoms emerge as your awakening stabilizes. Out-of-body experiences might occur spontaneously during meditation or even during ordinary activities. Prophetic dreams become more frequent and accurate. Some people discover healing abilities. Their touch seems to relieve others' pain or emotional distress. Creative abilities often explode during awakening as you access previously untapped areas of consciousness. The integration phase typically unfolds over several years. Initial activation usually lasts 6 months to 2 years and involves the most dramatic symptoms. Deep purification can continue for several more years as layer after layer of conditioning dissolves. Integration and stabilization gradually allow you to function effectively in ordinary reality while maintaining expanded awareness. Embodied mastery becomes a lifelong journey of serving others while continuing your own evolution. Dr. Patricia Walters, who's been researching consciousness transformation for over 20 years, notes that successfully integrated individuals share common characteristics. They maintain regular spiritual practices. They've developed strong discernment between ego desires and authentic guidance, and they've learned to serve others awakening without losing themselves in the process. Your reality is shifting whether you resist it or embrace it. These symptoms aren't obstacles to overcome. They're signs that you're successfully breaking free from the limitations that once defined your existence. Trust the process, support your system through the changes, and remember that you're participating in the most significant consciousness evolution in human history. The ancient world understood something we've forgotten in our rush toward digital everything. Consciousness isn't just what happens inside your skull. It's a field phenomenon that can be amplified, focused, and directed through precise environmental engineering. Walk into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, and you're stepping into humanity's most sophisticated consciousness laboratory. The granite walls contain high concentrations of quartz crystal, creating a natural piezoelectric field that responds to sound and pressure. When you speak or chant in that chamber, the entire room becomes a resonating cavity tuned to 110 Hz. The exact frequency that neuroscientist Ian Cook discovered shuts down the left brain's language centers and activates the right brain's intuitive processing. This isn't accident, it's technology. The builders knew that specific acoustic frequencies could shift brainwave patterns from beta alertness into theta states where the boundaries between individual consciousness and universal intelligence dissolve. Modern EEG studies of people meditating in the king's chamber show dramatic increases in theta and gamma wave activity, the same patterns associated with mystical experiences and heightened intuition. But pyramids weren't the only consciousness-altering architecture. Gothic cathedrals employed different principles to achieve similar effects. Those soaring vaulted ceilings weren't just aesthetic choices, they create specific acoustic properties that enhance alpha wave production. The mathematical proportions follow sacred geometry ratios, the golden mean, the vesica piscis, harmonic intervals that mirror the orbital relationships of planets. When you stand in Chartres Cathedral during a choral service, you're experiencing acoustic levitation. The sound waves literally lift your consciousness out of ordinary awareness into what medieval mystics called the cloud of unknowing, that space where direct knowing bypasses rational thought entirely. Stonehenge represents yet another approach. astronomical alignment as consciousness. Technology. The stones are positioned to channel specific electromagnetic frequencies during celestial events. During the summer solstice, the monument becomes a natural antenna, concentrating cosmic radiation in ways that affect human pineal gland activity. Blood samples taken from people participating in sunrise ceremonies there show elevated levels of DMT and melatonin, the same compounds associated with visionary states. These weren't worship spaces in our modern sense. They were consciousness laboratories where human awareness could interface directly with higher dimensional intelligence. The priests weren't performing empty rituals. They were operating sophisticated biotechnology using the human nervous system as the primary instrument. Now here's what most people miss. You can recreate these effects in your own environment without building a pyramid in your backyard. Sound is your most accessible tool. Tibetan singing bowls tuned to specific frequencies can shift your brainwave patterns within minutes. The 528 Hz love frequency opens the heart chakra and enhances intuitive reception. Binaural beats, different frequencies played in each ear, force your brain to synchronize at the mathematical difference between them. Play 100 Hz in your left ear and 104 Hz in your right, and your brain entrains to 4 Hz delta waves, the same frequency active during deep meditation and psychic states. But sound is just the beginning. Sacred geometry isn't mystical nonsense, it's applied mathematics that affects consciousness through visual resonance. Arrange your meditation space using golden ratio proportions. Position your sitting area at the geometric center of the room. Use crystals to create a dodecahedron, 12 pentagonal faces that mirror the geometric structure of spacetime itself according to quantum field theory. Water amplifies these effects exponentially. Moving water generates negative ions that increase serotonin production and enhance mental clarity. A simple fountain positioned according to feng shui principles creates what the Chinese call dragon lines, energy flows that support expanded awareness. Add specific minerals to the water, and you're creating a liquid crystal matrix that stores and transmits information. Plants aren't just decoration, they're biological antennas. Certain species, particularly those with spiral leaf patterns like aloe vera and jade plants, generate measurable electromagnetic fields that interact with human biofields. Ancient temple complexes always included specific botanical arrangements because the priests understood that consciousness operates through electromagnetic resonance. The meditation techniques that unlock these environmental effects are surprisingly specific. Visualization practices that activate the pineal gland require precise imagery. Envision indigo, light spiraling clockwise at the center of your forehead, while maintaining breath counts of 4 in, hold for 4, out for 4. This pattern synchronizes your brainwaves with the Earth's Schumann resonance at 783 Hz. Breathwork can replicate the consciousness states achieved through psychedelic substances used in ancient mystery schools. The Wim Hof method, controlled hyperventilation, followed by breath retention, floods your system with DMT while maintaining complete mental clarity. Extended sessions can produce full mystical experiences, including direct communication with non-physical intelligences. Here's where discernment becomes crucial. Not every thought that arises during altered states comes from higher dimensional sources. Genuine downloads have specific characteristics. They arrive complete rather than fragmentary. They contain information you couldn't have known through normal channels, and they prove themselves through practical application. True higher dimensional communication feels different from imagination. It arrives with a quality of certainty that transcends belief. The information often includes specific instructions or insights that, when followed, produce measurable results in physical reality. Many breakthrough scientific discoveries and artistic creations originated through these channels. Tesla's alternating current system, Kekule's benzene ring structure, even the Beatles' most innovative compositions. Group consciousness amplifies individual access exponentially. When multiple people synchronize their brainwave patterns through coordinated breathing or chanting, they create what Rupert Sheldrake calls morphic resonance, a field effect where individual consciousness boundaries dissolve into collective awareness. This is why ceremonial gatherings and group meditations can produce profound shifts that seem impossible during solo practice. Establish a regular protocol for maintaining these connections. Daily practice keeps your channels clear. 20 minutes of morning meditation using specific frequencies. Weekly ritual work that deepens your receptivity. and monthly intensive sessions designed for major information downloads. But remember, working with subtle energies and higher dimensional beings requires the same safety protocols you'd use with any powerful technology. Maintain strong energetic boundaries, verify received information through multiple sources, and always ground yourself thoroughly after intensive sessions. The ancient temples weren't monuments to dead gods. They were operating manuals for consciousness itself, encoded in stone and geometry and acoustic mathematics. Now you have the keys to rebuild those temples in your own reality, using your own awareness as both laboratory and instrument for exploring the infinite intelligence that surrounds us. The ancient Egyptians understood something that quantum physicists are only now beginning to prove. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it actively creates it. When you've been experiencing those activation symptoms we discussed earlier, when you felt your awareness expanding in those temple-like spaces you've created, you've actually been preparing your consciousness to work with the fundamental creative force of the universe itself. Modern quantum field theory tells us that at the deepest level, reality exists as a field of infinite potential, what physicists call the quantum vacuum. This isn't empty space. It's a seething ocean of possibility where every potential outcome exists simultaneously until consciousness collapses these probability waves into specific experiences. The ancient Egyptians called this same principle Ma'at, the cosmic order that responds to individual consciousness aligned with universal truth. Here's where it gets fascinating. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that particles behave differently when they're being observed. The very act of conscious observation determines whether a photon behaves as a wave or a particle. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable, repeatable science that validates what the Egyptian mystery schools taught for millennia. Focused consciousness shapes physical reality. But here's what most manifestation teachings get wrong. They treat thoughts as if they're magic bullets that automatically become things. The actual mechanism is far more sophisticated. Your thoughts create electromagnetic field fluctuations that interact with the quantum field, but only when they're backed by emotional coherence and aligned with your deeper purpose. Think of it like tuning a radio. You need the right frequency, clear signal, and minimal interference. I've studied hundreds of successful manifestation cases, and the pattern is always the same. The people who consistently create what they desire understand that emotions aren't just feelings, they're the carrier waves that give your intentions power. When Sarah, a client of mine, wanted to transition from corporate law to healing work, her breakthrough didn't come from visualizing success. It came when she felt genuine gratitude for her current job while simultaneously experiencing the joy of helping others heal. That emotional coherence created a clear signal the universe could respond to. The Egyptians practiced something they called speaking things into existence, and modern cymatics research shows us exactly how this works. Sound vibrations literally organize matter at the molecular level. When you speak your intentions with conviction, you're not just making noise, you're creating vibrational patterns that influence the physical world. Dr. Hans Jenny's experiments with sound patterns and sound frequencies prove that specific vibrations create specific geometric forms in matter. This is why the ancient temple practices were so precise about vocal techniques. They understood that certain sound combinations, spoken with specific emotional states, could restructure both consciousness and physical reality. You can apply this by speaking your intentions aloud during the early morning hours when your brainwaves are naturally in alpha state, using present tense language that assumes your desired outcome already exists. The most effective manifestation technique I've discovered combines ancient Egyptian visualization methods with modern neuroscience. Instead of just picturing what you want, you engage all 5 senses while adding the crucial element the ancients called K, your spiritual double experiencing the desired reality. When Michael wanted to manifest financial abundance, I had him visualize not just having money, but feeling the texture of quality materials, hearing the sounds of his dream environment, smelling the scents associated with his desired lifestyle. Most importantly, he embodied the emotional state of his future self who had already achieved these things. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They try to force outcomes instead of allowing natural unfoldment. The quantum field responds to clear intention coupled with relaxed expectation, not desperate grasping. When you're attached to specific timelines or exact details, you create resistance that interferes with the manifestation process. It's like trying to thread a needle while your hands are shaking. Another critical mistake is manifesting from ego desires rather than soul purpose. The universe has an intelligence that can distinguish between what you think you want and what actually serves your highest evolution. When your manifestation attempts align with your deeper purpose, what the Egyptians called your true name reality seems to conspire to help you. When they're purely ego-driven, you'll hit obstacle after obstacle. This brings us to the ethics of conscious manifestation. With great power comes great responsibility, and the ability to influence reality through consciousness is perhaps the greatest power humans possess. The ancient Egyptian principle of Ma'at included the concept that individual desires must align with cosmic harmony. Practically, this means asking yourself, will manifesting this serve not just me, but the highest good of everyone involved? I've seen remarkable results when people manifest from service rather than selfishness. David, a struggling musician, spent months trying to manifest a record deal for personal fame. Nothing happened. When he shifted his intention to sharing music that would heal and inspire others, opportunities began appearing within weeks. The universe seems to support manifestations that contribute to collective evolution. Synchronicity plays a crucial role in successful manifestation. These aren't random coincidences, they're feedback from the quantum field showing you that your intentions are gaining momentum. When you start noticing repeated number sequences, unexpected encounters with people who can help you, or resources appearing just when you need them, you're seeing evidence that your consciousness is successfully interfacing with the creative matrix of reality. Advanced practitioners learn to work with what I call timeline jumping, consciously shifting between parallel versions of reality where different outcomes have already occurred. This isn't science fiction. Quantum mechanics suggests that all possible timelines exist simultaneously. By aligning your consciousness with the timeline where your desired outcome has already manifested, you can literally shift your experience from one probability track to another. Ready to put this ancient wisdom into practice? Here's a comprehensive 30-day protocol that combines Egyptian temple techniques with quantum field principles. Days 1 to 10. Foundation building. Each morning, spend 20 minutes in coherent breathing while clearly defining your intention. Use present tense language and engage all 5 senses. Record any synchronicities or unusual dreams. Days 11 to 20. Amplification phase. Add sound work, speak your intentions aloud using specific vocal techniques. Practice gratitude for your current reality while embodying the emotional state of your desired outcome. Notice resistance patterns and limiting beliefs that arise. Days 21 to 30. Integration and refinement. Focus on service-oriented aspects of your manifestation. How will achieving this desire allow you to contribute more effectively to others? Practice timeline jumping meditation, consciously aligning with the version of reality where your intention has already materialized. Throughout this process, remember that you're not trying to manipulate reality, you're learning to dance with it. The ancient Egyptians understood that consciousness and cosmos are partners in an eternal creative dance, and when you align your individual will with universal intelligence, miracles become natural expressions of an awakened life. We've journeyed through the quantum field of infinite possibilities, learned to access higher dimensional intelligence through ancient wisdom, and discovered how reality responds to our consciousness. Now comes the most crucial understanding of all. Your awakening isn't just personal transformation, it's your essential contribution to humanity's greatest evolutionary leap. The Great Awakening isn't some distant prophecy waiting to unfold. It's happening right now, in this moment, through every person who chooses consciousness over conditioning. Think of it like a massive orchestra, where each awakened individual becomes a unique instrument, contributing their specific frequency to a symphony that's reshaping the very fabric of human experience. Here's what most people don't understand about collective consciousness. It operates through what scientists call morphic resonance. When you break through a limiting belief, solve an inner conflict, or elevate your vibrational state, you're not just changing yourself, you're making it easier for millions of others to access that same breakthrough. You're literally creating pathways in the collective field of human awareness. I've witnessed this phenomenon countless times. When someone in rural Montana discovers they can heal their relationship with money using ancient abundance principles, suddenly people in Tokyo and Sao Paulo start having similar realizations without any direct connection. The morphic field carries these frequency shifts across space and time, creating what researchers call the 100th monkey effect in human consciousness evolution. Your role as an awakened being carries profound responsibility. You become an anchor point for higher frequencies in a world still largely operating from fear, scarcity, and separation. This doesn't mean you need to preach or convince anyone. In fact, the most powerful awakened individuals often work through pure energetic presence and authentic example. But here's where it gets challenging. Living as a conscious being in an unconscious world requires extraordinary skill and compassion. You'll encounter family members who think you've lost your mind when you start making decisions based on intuitive guidance rather than social expectations. Colleagues might resist your attempts to bring more integrity and purpose into workplace dynamics. Friends might feel uncomfortable around your newfound clarity and authenticity. The key is maintaining what I call compassionate detachment. Remember that everyone is exactly where they need to be in their evolutionary journey. Your grandmother who still believes the news tells her the truth. Your brother who measures success purely through material accumulation. Your neighbor who lives in constant anxiety about the future. They're all playing essential roles in the grand awakening process, even if it doesn't look like it. Never fall into spiritual superiority. The moment you start thinking you're more evolved than others, you've actually taken a step backward. True awakening brings humility, not arrogance. It brings service, not separation. It brings love, not judgment. Let me share a practical framework for conscious living that honors both your awakened awareness and your effectiveness in the world. Start each morning by connecting with your deeper purpose, not your career goals or daily tasks, but your soul's authentic expression in this lifetime. Ask yourself, how can I serve the highest good today while honoring my own growth and joy? Make decisions from your center, not your conditioning. When faced with choices, pause and feel into your body's wisdom before engaging your analytical mind. Your cellular intelligence often knows the right path before your thoughts catch up. This doesn't mean abandoning logic, it means integrating intuitive guidance with practical reasoning. In relationships, practice what I call evolutionary love. Instead of trying to change or fix others, focus on creating space for their authentic expression while maintaining your own boundaries and truth. Support others' growth without taking responsibility for their choices. Love without attachment to outcomes. Many awakened individuals struggle with what I call stealth awakening, how to embody higher consciousness while remaining effective in mainstream society. The secret is translation, not transformation of others. Speak conventional language while operating from unconventional wisdom. Focus on results and contributions that others can appreciate, regardless of whether they understand your underlying methodology. In business, this might mean presenting intuitive insights as market research or strategic analysis. In parenting, it could involve teaching children critical thinking and emotional intelligence without explicitly challenging their school's programming. In community involvement, it means leading by example rather than ideology. Your awakened consciousness has practical applications that benefit everyone around you. Conscious parenting nurtures children's natural spiritual awareness, while helping them develop the skills to navigate current reality. Conscious business practices create abundance for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Conscious community building establishes support networks that help everyone thrive. The responsibility that comes with expanded awareness cannot be understated. When you can sense energy fields, receive intuitive downloads, or influence reality through focused intention, you must use these abilities ethically. Power without wisdom becomes manipulation. Gifts without service become ego inflation. Different life stages bring unique awakening opportunities and challenges. Young adults often experience dramatic spiritual emergence that requires integration with practical skill development. Middle-age awakening frequently involves dismantling decades of conditioning while maintaining family and career responsibilities. Late-life wisdom integration offers opportunities to mentor others while preparing for dimensional transitions. As more individuals awaken, we're approaching what systems theorists call a phase transition in human consciousness. When approximately 15 to 20% of any population adopts new behaviors or beliefs, the entire system shifts to accommodate the new paradigm. We're potentially very close to this tipping point. Imagine societies where economic systems prioritize well-being over growth, where educational institutions develop human potential rather than create compliant workers, where healthcare focuses on consciousness and prevention rather than symptom management. These aren't utopian fantasies, they're natural outcomes of widespread awakening. Your preparation for this transition involves developing the skills and relationships that will be valuable in more conscious societies. Cultivate authentic communication, collaborative problem-solving, and service-oriented leadership. Build communities of mutual support and shared growth. Most importantly, embody the change you wish to see consistently and authentically. The universe has been orchestrating your awakening for lifetimes, bringing you exactly the experiences, challenges, and opportunities needed for your consciousness to evolve. Thoth's wisdom, quantum field dynamics, and ancient temple technologies have all played roles in preparing you for this moment of choice. You are not here by accident. Your unique combination of gifts, experiences, and perspectives is precisely what the collective awakening process requires. Whether you contribute through artistic expression, healing work, conscious business, awakened parenting, or simply embodying peace in a chaotic world, your role is irreplaceable. The call is clear. Step fully into your power as a conscious reality creator. Trust your inner guidance. Serve the highest good. Love without conditions. Create without limitations. The world is waiting for your unique contribution to humanity's greatest transformation. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."